Next up is the session, Is It Time We Scrapped Black Funds?
Welcome, everyone. Great to see so many incredible faces here. And welcome to BTF, to our amazing team, our amazing colleagues. But my name is Dina Alpha, and I am part of the team at Colour in Tech, which has brought to you, which has brought you BTF. And we have an incredible panel today to talk about whether or not black funds should be scrapped. And so I want to set the context here. So, less than 0.4% of the UK venture funding went to black founders in 2022. That was an example by Extend Ventures. Only 2% of decision makers at UK VC firms are black. US-led funds saw a funding surge in 2020 to 2021, but over 50% reported LP pullback by 2023. Pretty horrendous, right? The British Business Bank has published no data on how much public reaches ethnic minority businesses. So, this is a really big topic. And, I just want to kind of start by saying that, in 2020, over 340 million was pledged globally to black-led businesses and founders in the wake of George Floyd's murder. And for a brief moment, venture capital, promised change. And, it was filled with pitch decks. Everyone had their pitch decks and everything. And new funds were created, and there was hope. But, here we are now in 2025. Things have changed, And in the UK, it's less than 3.5% of people, get venture capital in terms of black founders. And, it's quietly disappearing. We're seeing all of these things change over time. And so I wanted to talk to you about, whether or not these initiatives should still take place or if we should scrap black funds. So we've got an incredible panel here. Jasmine, I'm going to let you go first and talk a little bit about yourselves and what you do, what funds you do, and tell us why you decided to get into venture capital as well.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here. This is amazing. I'm Jasmine Thomas. I work with Ada Ventures as a venture partner. I do some angel investing, and I'm really committed to getting more females and more black people on venture-led cap tables, essentially. And that's what I do.
Hey, yeah, my name's Ken Thomas. No relation to Jasmine there. I'm with a fund called Back Future Ventures. We're spinning out of a conference called SaaS Stock, largest B2B SaaS-focused conference in Europe. Yeah, we do B2B SaaS, pre-seed and seed from New York. Yeah, that's kind of my ramble.
Thanks, Ken. Hey, everybody. My name is Rodney Appiah. I'm the managing partner of Cornerstone VC. We're an all-black GP VC firm based right here in London. We focus at pre-seed and seed stage, and we focus on diverse founders who are seeking to transform the way that we live, work, and play. So great to meet you guys. Really looking forward to the conversation.
And greetings. My name is Nasir Kadri, based out of Washington, D.C. I run a firm called Zeo Capital Partners. We backed bold, diverse management teams that are rethinking the building blocks of wealth, from education to employment pathways to financial technology with the lens towards inclusion and wellness, and healthcare with the lens towards health equity. We are a category-specific venture capital firm. We manage about $186 million under management. And we back founders from the US, where we're based, UK and Canada. One of our largest limited partners is based here in Barclays, where we manage about $50 million backing diverse founders and even scouts as well, where one of our goals is to invest in operators so they can build track records, and hopefully we have more diverse GPs. And proud to say, Jasmine,
I am one of them.
Jasmine, you are one of our star scouts, so thrilled to be here, and this is a timely conversation.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your introductions. So let's go back, to 2020. Capital was mobilized. As I said before, statements were made. Funds were launched. But yeah, 5 years, has any of it shifted? Or did it just allow the traditional system to continue being unchecked? So Ken, I'm going to start with you, right? So in the Atomico State of European Tech Report, it found that there was no sustained funding increase for black founders post 2020, which is crazy. So have identity-led funds actually created meaningful change or simply built a separate lane that allows mainstream VC to opt out?
Yeah, I think one, the timeline is kind of short for it to see those kind of things from a venture perspective. And yeah, I think I was having a few conversations about this before where it kind of allows for this conversation for it to be like a third sector initiative versus what a purely venture aspect where we're saying these are great founders and they're going to do this regardless of race or anything like that, but also not getting tied into this flawed understanding of or flawed assumption that meritocracy is the best way to go because nepotism always finds its way to tie into that. But I think, you know, there has been an excuse for some, but like it's not. There's been an aspect of saying this is a philanthropic endeavor. I think sometimes for some folks, but yeah.
We'll definitely tap into that, the idea of like label theory and the idea that, you know, maybe sometimes when it comes to VC and diverse funds, it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is just a side project. But yeah, we'll tap into that. Rodney, you actually have backed over 40 diverse founders, right? Yet many institutional LPs, you know, still hesitate to include black inclusive models. So do you feel that inclusive investing is still treated like an exception to the rule or a replicable model?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the reality is that when people think about diversity and they think about inclusion, they think about impact, and they think about CSR, and they think about charity, and they think about lend of last resort, right? Let's be honest. And LPs are much more cutthroat than that. They care about returns, first and foremost. They care about outlier founders. And so we've worked really hard at Cornerstone to say that, look, this is a strategy that unlocks alpha for you. This is an opportunity for you to make returns where others are not looking. And that's ultimately how you have to tell the story, right? It can't be about impact. It can't just be about doing the right thing. It's about doing the thing that makes money. And if you do the thing that makes money and it becomes sustainable, people will gravitate towards it. They'll start to invest more capital towards it. And actually for founders too, that's what they want to associate with. They want to associate with funds that want to win. They don't want to associate with funds just because they've picked them out because they happen to fit a certain label or fit a certain ethnicity. That's not what it's about, right? It's about winning. It's about finding the very best, the top 1%. That's what we're here to do. So that would be my take on that question.
No, that's really interesting because you have to take a lot of, you know, institutional funding, and you're right. You want to back the best, and maybe there's not as much opportunity for, you know, black founders, especially in this space. But I'm going to go to you, Nasir, because actually you're one of the Zeal is one of the few black funds in the US that has actually received institutional capital. And has this translated in the broader industry in terms of change, or are traditional VCs still playing, you know, the same game?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on +1 on Rodney's point. I think I'm a bit of a history buff. If you look at venture capital back in the late 80s, early 90s, you only had a handful of venture capital firms. Fast forward, I think what makes this moment so differentiated and important is that you have black folk, you have women who have track records, who have experience, whether it's going through other venture capital firms or investment banking or being operators. And I think what you're seeing now is you have more, can you hear me now? You have more of us who have track records and also, of course, differentiated networks. And to Rodney's point, we see alpha, we see genius. And I think there's continues to be a systems level issue where you have, whether it be traditional LPs or you have your storied firms, nothing wrong with NEA and Greylock and General Catalyst of the world, they send a powerful signal when a founder gets that term sheet. But you now have folks like us who are meeting with founders and founders who have real world personal experience say, you know what, that person can swipe their card and make a business out of it. So the way I think about, to your question, to your point, Rodney, like they care about the entrepreneur that can become market leaders, right? We're looking for companies that can disrupt new markets, and also for us we're category specific, fund managers who can continue to get smarter and differentiate themselves as it relates to innovation across the different categories. And so I think it's now a shift in, let's see if the founders that, and to your point, Ken, it's too early. Venture capital is a long game. It's a 10-year for every fund. And so it's too early for us to say if this thing is working. But I can say that there's islands of excellence that do exist. We invested our very first company, a company called Isuzu. It's one of the very, very few black billion-dollar businesses. And we got in when it was a 15 post-money valuation. And we had owned like 5-6% of the business. And 16 months later, it shot up to a billion-dollar business. And we need more Isuzus. And I believe there will be more Isuzus when you have us allocating capital.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I mean, and also I think we need more visibility, right? And sometimes actually with that visibility, there's a sense of it being quite burdensome. And that's something that I want to touch on now. So, yeah, there's certain visibility you get as a black investor, in this space, and it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I think, because you're expected to be like a symbol, role model, spokesperson, you're over-mentored, underfunded, it works the same way, even for like GPs, if you're a founder, everything. So I wanted to touch on that, especially being like decision makers in the space. I'm going to start with you, Jasmine, because what are the kind of like professional and emotional costs of being a representative in this industry where capital essentially equals power?
I think there is some emotional cost because it is hard, and you want to be helpful to absolutely everyone, but you're so time limited with what you can actually do. And sometimes, LinkedIn kind of seems like a black hole of just like so many emails and messages. Sometimes it's like, how can I ever keep up, and how can I ever keep fair? But actually, what we do and the work we do through Ada, I think that we are really overarching our commitment and really seeing through what we want to do to make sure we are looking for the best, not just the best connected. So we are not a diversity fund. We are solely searching out people for the very best of what they can do. And the way that which we have diversified the pools in which we receive great talent has been so far and wide-reaching that we do see these talents and we do find them because we are in those pockets and we're in those communities that not every fund is in. So most days I feel very comfortable with what I'm doing, both personally and professionally when it comes to investing, because I know that we have the outreach, we have, we have things in place to make sure that I am seeing and giving everyone a really fair chance at this.
So you think it's systematic?
Yeah.
You think that like you should have processes in place to essentially ensure that you get the best reach for all types of founders?
Well, yeah, I think there is, like we've touched on, there is nepotism everywhere, there is unfairness and inequality everywhere, and actually when you look at the VC industry as a whole, 93% of the VC industry went to private schools. Like, that's insane.
I went to a private school.
Okay, but that's where it starts though, and that's where it starts and that's where the learnings are, and people like to hire themselves as well. So we see teams replicated. At Ada, there's 4 people that sit in the investment team and 2 are black. We have Michael, who is a principal, who is writing tickets. So we are overcoming some of those systemic limitations in order for us to make sure that we are reaching every corner of diversity when it comes to check writers as well.
Yeah, that's a really great point that you made about check writers because, especially in the UK, Rodney, as another example, you're one of 10, fewer than 10 black GPs in the UK. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So does that give you like extra added pressure when it comes to representing in terms of LPs? So LP basically stands for limited partner. So they're the ones that actually invest in funds. So when funds invest into you as founders, they will get their funds from someone else. So essentially, GPs, general partners, are essentially like founders, but they have to make their returns. So yeah, I think like Rodney, in terms of being that in the UK, is there any pressure to represent, the community?
Yeah, massive pressure. I think in the US, the diversity ecosystem and diversity fund ecosystem is very well established. You've got funds like ZIL VC, like Collab Capital, like Mac Ventures, that are kind of managing 100 million plus, right? Cornerstone is an all-black VC firm based in London, and we manage $25 million, right? That gives you a sense of the discrepancy in terms of the capital that we can manage in the UK. We're very much pioneers on this side of the pond. We're trying to establish that ecosystem here. And so as we're trying to demonstrate to LPs that we know what we're doing, that we're professional, that we can find great deal flow, that we can scale, that we can tell a compelling narrative, on the flip side, we also have founders that are rightly reaching out to us and saying, when are you going to write me a check? Because you're supposed to be different. Because you're black, you look like me. You understand my pain, you understand my struggles, you understand my challenges. You know that I'm brilliant because you're brilliant. So why can't you write a check for me? And I'm saying, I wish I could. But there's a limitation to what I can do with what I have and with the LPs that I have behind me that are saying, Rodney, if you want to go again and do this on a material way, you've got to be successful. So then the pressure is then to pick the very best. It's not saying that what you're building isn't worthy of attention, worthy of interest, worthy of time. Of course it is. But I've got a limited amount of time to make sure that we deserve to be here, that we deserve to run funds, that allocate capital, that make decisions. And that's what we're trying to build. That's the narrative that we're trying to establish here in the UK. The US they've already gone across that chasm. They've established themselves. They're now all about scaling. But in the UK, we're starting. You know, you've got Cornerstone VC, you've got Blackseed, you've got 10 by 10, you've got Impact X. You've got a handful of black-led VC firms in the UK. It's wrong. It needs to change. But ultimately, we've got to be successful. And all I'd ask from the community is to support us in doing that. If you see us screw up, tell us. Let us fix it, right? If you think we're not handling a situation in the right way, if you think we're miscommunicating, if you think we're ghosting you, speak out, tell us, and let us deal with it. But also be patient and recognize where we're coming from. That's the only thing I would say to the community.
Yeah, I think that the pressure to get it right can be a little bit suffocating. And I guess do you feel that you have to prove Cornerstone's thesis double the time?
So one of the big things about Cornerstone VC is that often people assume that because we're an all-black team, because we are, so we've got 3 black GPs, 1 black female associate, that we only back black founders. But that's not the case, right? We just happen to be a black team that believes in finding incredible talent wherever it can be found. And so actually when we define diversity, we define it in the broadest sense. Diversity by ethnicity, by gender, and by region. And so we're looking for talent wherever it is. Why is it that as black investors, we should be consigned to a box where we can only back black founders? That's insane, right? That doesn't make any sense. It's about backing exceptional talent. The difference is, though, we're going to be trying to back that talent without bias. So it doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter whether you're privately educated. I'm state educated, by the way, right? Doesn't matter whether you're privately educated, state educated, whether you come from the right schools, the right networks, we're going to have a conversation with you and we're going to understand what it is that you're trying to build. And if you've got the same hunger, the same resilience, the same desire to build a world-leading category business, we want to have a conversation with you. If you don't want to do that, that's also fine, but we're not the right partner for you. It doesn't mean you're going to be a failure. You're still going to be a success, but we're just not part of your journey, and that's okay.
Yeah. I have nothing to say on that. I totally get you. And I want to double down on that a little bit, and I want to hear from both Ken and Nasir, because Nasir, you work with a diversity-led, underrepresented-led fund, and Ken, you're kind of the opposite. So, you work in B2B SaaS, and, what does that kind of look like in terms of allyship and, investment committees and those term sheet decisions?
Yeah, I built this firm from the ground, from scratch. And I remember it was February 7th, 2020, not to realize 3, 4, 5 months later, we'll all be on shutdown. And when that did happen, I'm like, what the heck am I doing? And should I just turn around and go find a job. But I have been blessed with incredible mentors, and particularly those in the venture capital space, GPs from storied firms, and I do think there's they have instilled confidence in me and said, Nasir, you have a track record. It's top quartile. You're 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 looking at the world much different, and this is your calling. You need to be out here. The private markets needs Zeal Capital Partners. And so there is also, I realized very quickly, there's a difference between being an investor and a fund manager. And so I am flying this thing as I build it and realizing that you got to think about fund administration, you got to think about the full aspects of building a company and not a fund, a platform, a franchise, a firm. Because jumping to your answer to your question, we need to be around. And in order for that to happen, we have to build long-standing platforms. And so I think what's been beneficial for me is that most of the storied firms like NEA and Greylock and Emergence, First Round, all the GPs, I pitched all of them, and they became limited partners in my firm. And that's great for them from a financial, but for me, it's from mentorship and realizing that these are 20, 30 year funds, but they realized maybe on the talent side, they got it wrong. And so maybe if I can just pick up the operational aspects in the investment process that help them grow to where they are today, I can customize that the Zeal way in terms of how we source and underwrite and scale businesses. So I think it's been a challenge for me to, at the beginning. Now I'm on my footing a bit, and the reason why I'm out here is to co-invest with investors like Rodney. We're in 2 companies together in Astercare and in Rome, and the goal is to come alongside, not be a parachute in, parachute out, and understand that there are the cornerstones of the world and the Impact X and the other black-led fund managers and other fund managers in the region, so that it's more capital injected. Because I realize, and I'm sure everyone else on this panel, is that our capital is not enough. And so the more we lean into each other and understand each other's strategies and how we think about scale our respective portfolio companies, then we all win. And so if you want to go fast, go along. If you want to go far, go to the African proverb, and that is so important, particularly today.
Amazing. Ken, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely sympathize or empathize with building while you're flying, because having started this at day 0 when they started the fund, have had the ability to have my hand in a lot of things and how we kind of go about of it. And again, while there's no, I guess, mandate for diversity or something like that, one, as a person of color, I do make sure this is part of the culture of what we're doing, and making sure I'm beating the pavement to making sure that I'm in the right places where I'm going to be finding founders like this and things like that nature. And of course, you do get a lot of inbound as well from a lot of founders. And in beating the pavement, I've met a lot of folks that are very valuable in the ecosystem, that help people kind of bring things together and help people become investor ready in a lot of cases. And I try to channel and distribute those people that are early in their journey with those individuals, help bring them up to where I can be ready for them. But there are those individuals that I'll see it there might be 80 or 90% there, and I could cool, I could pull you in, and then we could really have a more serious conversation and what it means to just be investor ready, And of course, you got to work twice as hard to get half as much a lot of times. So that's kind of how I approached it. And there's no real, I guess, process I've had for it. It's just you have to be present, visible, and willing to get involved.
Yeah, love that answer. And yeah, by the way, Ken, you've got an American accent, and so do you, Nasir. And I wanted to just quickly touch base on that, because you know what's happening in the US. In the US, DEI is under attack, and in the UK, funding for Black founders still remains less than 1%. So, is the UK, behind and facing different barriers? And I want to just touch a little bit on label theory. So, identity-led funds actually came out as a response of targeted a targeted solution to kind of the exclusion of black founders and black people and systematic failure. And, you know, they've opened doors, but it's still overlooked by the mainstream. And, you know, the very label that actually once signaled purpose, is it now narrowing the potential? So psychologists basically label this as, call it label theory. And it's the idea that you're assigned a label, even a positive one, can actually shape perception, reinforce expectations, and actually influence how institutions respond. So in venture, that could be like, you know, the diversity fund, you know, what you heard from Jasmine and Rodney, right? You know, we so happen to be black, but, you know, it then puts everyone in a pigeonhole. So my question is actually to all of you, and then we'll talk about a little bit more about the US, UK differences and what you can basically take. But, you know, is keeping kind of like identity-led funds seen as a niche or as a powerful, not as a powerful allocator, but as a side project? Jasmine, do you want to go first?
I'm going to answer it from the perspective of our portfolio companies and how they like to identify the black led people we have in our portfolio companies and how they like to be perceived. And they don't like the conversation to be centered around diversity because they don't want to feel like we are just being backed because we're black. They're being black because they're excellent and they are on par with all the other excellent people that we back. So I think it's really often, it's great when it's driven by the founder and as a fund when you can understand that. And it is literally just investing in the best, not the best connected. And we are so focused on that. So I'm gonna answer that from a founder-led perspective and how they like to be identified and how they like to be perceived as like they are just excellent.
Okay, great. We've only got a couple minutes left. So I want Nazir and Ken to answer this question. And then I'm gonna take it to the audience and ask them to raise their hands on whether or not we should scrap, scale, or reshape our identity capitalism. You go ahead.
Yeah, kind of a short answer. I mean, I just don't have those conversations. You know, like you're just a founder that happens to be black. I'm an investor that happens to be black. I mean, we're not investing in you because you're black. We're not investing in you like, I can't underwrite color. You know, this is not what I do. I underwrite great people, and that's just kind of what it is. I mean, any conversation I've had with a black founder, it's never been like a color thing. It's just, what are you building? Why are you building? So how'd you get here? Why should I care? You know, all these type of things, right? The same questions I would ask any white founder, right?
Liquidity events is what keeps us in business. DPI, realizations, that's what's going to keep us in business. We just closed our second fund at $82 million, and let me tell you, it was brutal. I mean, I traveled. It was a lot, and there was a lot of pullback. You know, those who came in Fund 1, you know, didn't come in Fund 2, and I was like, what? Did you back me because of charity, or did you back me because of, you know, it was a unique strategy? And so, you know, I believe, again, if entrepreneurs are truly going to be the change agents of this world, then it has to include everyone. And so for that reason, again, we have to be in business. Black GPs, women GPs have to be in business.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have to close now. But I wanted to bring it to the audience. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands if you think we should scrap black funds. Raise your hand if you think we should scrap. Wow, like no one. That's crazy. That's crazy. What about if you think we should scale them, so we need more of them? Oh, okay. Nice. And what do you think about reshaping? Do we just need a full reshape on how we interact? Oh, I don't even know. What do you think the room was saying? I think it's scale them. What about you guys? What do you think? The team? Jasmine?
Rodney, you go.
Okay, what do you think? Should we scrap them, should we scale them, or should we reshape them?
We need to build incredible category-leading VC firms so that in 2 years, 3 years' time, when you guys are thinking about building businesses, or if even today, when you're building a business, you're not going to be thinking about getting money from Boulderton or from Index or from A16. You're going to be thinking about getting money from Cornerstone or from ZIL VC. that's where we need to get to. Like, we want you to see Cornerstone and Zil VC and all these other black-led funds as being in that upper quartile. And you want them to be on your cap table. Because when you look at your cap table and you look at the people that are backing you, you want to see some people that look like you.
And
We gotta go.
wealth creation as well. Because when y'all win, we all win, right? And so that's the beauty of it as well. It's wealth creation.
So are you scrap, scale, or?
Scale.
Okay. Okay, amazing. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone for joining, and thank you to our amazing panel. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of BTF.